Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, and today we're talking about dropping our organic certification, why we're no longer doing a farmer's market, and dealing with drainage water from the wash pack shed. So let's do it. All right, so hello Wednesday, my old friend. During the season, Wednesday is typically a delivering day for us, but in the winter, Wednesday is whatever we want it to be day, though it is often also interrupted by European soccer, which I frankly welcome, at least sometimes. I'm not a night person unless you count how early I get up to be the night still, which fair. So I prefer my sports to happen earlier in the day, and in the wintertime, that works out. Anyway, I'm good with Wednesdays. Just needed you all to know that. Today, it's cold again, but I need to get a few things done in the tunnel. I'd like to sow some arugula, lettuce, and spinach this week. Now that I'm a full week out from sowing the carrots last week, I will wait about one more week before sowing any radishes. Because unlike the other crops, they tend to get big fast, which is not super helpful to have radishes and nothing else. So I try and avoid that. Anyway, that's not what's on the front of my mind today. What is on the front of my mind is that we signed a surrender form to this week for our organic certification. What that means is that we are officially dropping our organic certification, but I want to be clear about why, because I'm not really trying to make some big statement with it. There are negatives and positives with all things, and for us, the label just didn't have the value that it used to, and we may even return to it one day. I don't know. But this is why, though. First, we're no longer doing the farmer's market, and I'm going to talk about that in the last segment. But that's where I believe organic certification has the most value for us. When we ran a CSA, those customers didn't really care that much, though maybe a few of them did, but generally not. The label wasn't their concern. And our retail customers maybe care a little bit, but the place where we saw noticeable interest in having an organic certification label was at the farmer's market. If you're doing a farmer's market and you already practice organic practices, it's a no-brainer to me. Certify. As I always say, it's an instant customer base. If you're not doing a farmer's market, then it may not be worth the work to get certification. To be clear, it's not that expensive when you factor in the government rebate, but depending on where you are, the upfront cost may be a healthy chunk of change. And then even with the rebate, for some of you, it will still be several $100s. For us, it was a couple $100 to start, and we got 75% of that back. So in the end, it cost us less than $100 to be certified. Anyway, now that we're not doing the farmer's market, it's not as important to us to be certified. So that's part of it. Also, I just don't have an extra day in my life to hang out with an inspector on my farm if I don't have to. No offense to them. They're always wonderful folks. I have no issue with hanging out with them, but I'm a busy dude, and a day of making sure I have everything they will need and then going through 2 or 3 hour audit or whatever it is, well, all of that is totally worth it if I'm doing a farmer's market. Otherwise, I got weird trials in the garden that I'd rather be tending to. Also, if I'm being honest, there is a version of the label that I would absolutely get excited about, but I just can't tell you how much my enthusiasm for USDA organic waned when they brought hydroponics into the fold. No disrespect to hydroponic growers, like truly what they do is really fascinating and difficult, but it's just not what I want when I buy an organic product. So it's not what I want to associate with as an organic grower. It's two very different things. One is more about managing biology and ecology, and the other is more about managing chemistry. It's cool, but it's different. Also, some of the livestock stuff is just flatly, not super humane in organic farming, not ecological. There are also a lot of weird little technical things in organics that I don't really agree with. But again, I'm not trying to make some grand proclamation about why we're outraged in leaving organic certification to take a stand. It's just like nothing like that. I mean, it's more practical than anything else. It's just a matter of it no longer makes sense for our life, our business. It's like looking at any tool on the farm and saying, like holding it in your hand and saying, do we need this? How often do we actually use it? Is it worth the time and space and capacity that it's taking up? And we did that with the organic label, proverbially, and decided, meh. Now, we are still keeping up with all of our paperwork because, well, that's what you do in a farm business anyway. But also, if we want to ever jump back into the farmer's market or see some other way that being certified would behoove us, we can jump back in without little or much trouble at all. Or perhaps a future retailer requests us to be certified, or perhaps we'll start growing seeds. And a lot of times seed companies who are going to buy your seed prefer you to be organic. And we could always just certify specific plots and crops to simplify things. And obviously, we're not all of a sudden going to start using prohibited substances. I'm an ecological farmer, and so we avoid all of the prohibited fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and nutrients, not just out of principle, but simply because they do not boost the ecology. Pretty simple. Now, I'm not interested in different or new labels either. I'm more interested in simplifying things so that I can grow the best possible food with the least amount of stress while having room to play and enjoy the farm. And cutting out large yearly application processes and lengthy audits seem like low-hanging fruit for us at the moment. Anyway, let me know your thoughts or questions on organic certification, whether you feel it's right for your farm. Otherwise, it's break time. And up next, we'll get a Patreon question. How about that? BRB. Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Harnwah Greenhouses. Harnwah Greenhouses has pioneered controlled environment agriculture since 1965, partnering with market gardeners and farmers across North America to deliver turnkey greenhouse solutions. Their unwavering mission is to support growers' success through innovation and expertise in design, manufacturing, and installation. Harnwah Greenhouses are engineered to withstand high wind and snow loads, providing optimal brightness, increased yields, rapid ROI, and long-lasting durability. With over 20,000 projects completed, they are more than a manufacturer. They are a trusted partner. Their structures foster sustainable, energy-efficient ecosystems that drive profitable, resilient agriculture. In 2025, Harnwah is introducing a new low-tech, high-tunnel model starting at just $2 per square foot, offering open field growers an accessible entry into controlled environment agriculture. Harnwah Greenhouses, leading the way in turnkey solutions for local growers. Learn more at harnwah.com. That's HARNOIS.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this content, even getting a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/notillgrowers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Carolyn F., who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. Happy winter solstice. I'm looking for advice concerning the reuse of wash water from the pack shed for irrigating fields, tunnels, or else letting it flow back into the surrounding environment near a stream. I currently do not use sanitizers or soaps in my wash water, which comes from the same well that supplies our home. The totes are sanitized with isopropyl alcohol after being scrubbed and rinsed. If I want to direct wash water to holding tanks to then be used for irrigation, what do I need to consider? If I have a need or want to use sanitizers or soaps, that would end up in the holding tanks. What do I need to know? Thank you." End quote. Okay, so great question. Now, for starters, not knowing much about how much water we're talking about here or how much water you need for your garden, I want to first point everyone towards the video I did with Spencer Rudolph of Sage Hill Ranch Gardens out in Escondido, California, who has a great water collection and distribution system, and he breaks down how the system works and some of the important considerations in terms of dealing with all the particulate and silt and such that comes from washing vegetables. That type of system may, however, be overkill for you or possibly underkill, I don't know. But there is a financial point at which setting up a system like that versus just doing something really passive with water doesn't make total sense. Budgeting everything out first with the system is key. So anyway, I will link that in the show notes so you can watch and see his system in action. Now, if you want to use drainage water for irrigation, the sediment is going to be an issue. So you have to figure out a way to deal with that. Having a holding tank where the sediment can drop, which will be later cleaned out occasionally, and then a separate tank for fresh water is going to be the key. If gravity is not on your side, like it is at Spencer's farm, because he farms on a terraced hillside, so the water comes from the top of the hillside down into the garden, then you will also need to think about getting a pump and or elevating the tanks to get the proper amount of pressure. Another thing to consider is making sure your holding tanks are opaque, like black or dark green or whatever, and sealed off from things like frogs and mosquito larvae, among other cute and non-cute creatures. The opaque color will help prevent moss and green molds from forming and clogging your system. As to the question about using soaps and such, assuming you are talking about OMRI-approved substances and not like bleach, you could add a charcoal filtration system that would help potentially, or run it through wood chips or even potentially biochar like we saw with that system at FOOP. Alternatively to irrigation, if that's a little more than you want to deal with, having the water fed into a pile of wood chips will help to decompose the wood chips to later be used as mulch, because one of the main factors why they break down so slowly is just a lack of moisture. As a side note, I think of water used in compost as future water, stored in soil in the form of organic matter like that, which enables soil to have a stronger water holding capacity. So to me, using water to make compost is rarely a waste. It just helps retain water later. Anyway, you can also just set up a gray water system with a wood chip buffer that feeds water-loving plants or even a small pond. You mentioned a stream, and I wouldn't just have the water running straight into a stream. I would certainly try to have it buffered through something before going out into the wild. For one, you don't want to pollute anything, but also you don't want to lose all that silt and stuff that you get off of your plants. Lettuce and beets or whatever you're washing. Not that farmers have time for landscaping, but it could potentially be an opportunity to bring in some wetland plants from your region, if they exist there, for a little biodiversity. Then you can occasionally dig up those wood chips and add them to the compost to reclaim some of the lost material from the washing process. Same goes for any of those systems, re-adding the leftover silt to the compost or maybe to top-dressed orchards. As long as you're not using anything extra weird in the water, could be an excellent way to reclaim the lost soil particles. I think there's a lot of room for simple innovations here. All of these products should also notably have a safety data sheet, like Sanidate 5.0, a common organically approved water sanitizer, has a label that says it's biodegradable and does not bioaccumulate. It's also easily diluted. It also has a decomposition temperature of 55 degrees Celsius or 131 Fahrenheit, so adding the wood chips to a compost pile could be a good way to utilize them and reduce risk of adding sanitizer to your garden. You may also have local regulations that dictate what you can and can't do with wastewater, so obviously you kind of have to check those out before you build or do anything, especially as it pertains to going back into the environment. Anyway, I hope that all was helpful. Love that question, and I look forward to hearing what others might add in the comments because I certainly didn't think of everything. Remember, these shows are basically the equivalent of writing a 3,000-word research paper every single day. So if I don't touch all the bases, make sure to help me out a little bit there. All right, up next, let's talk about why we stopped selling at the farmers market. BRB. Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Peaceful Heritage Nursery. If you're looking for hardy and resilient fruit trees, berry plants, or pawpaw trees, then check out Peaceful Heritage Nursery. Peaceful Heritage Nursery LLC is a mail-order nursery shipping premium quality fruit trees and berry plants across the USA. They specialize in resilient, non-GMO plant genetics for small growers. Their diverse selection includes berries, cold hardy figs, passion fruit, gumi, mulberry, and much more. They're famous for their diverse selection of premium quality grafted pawpaw trees. 5-star Google ratings and customer testimonials attest to their commitment to excellence in quality and service. Find them at peacefulheritage.com and join their mailing list. Once again, find them at peacefulheritage.com. Use the promo code NOTILL, all caps, one word, for 10% off your first order. All right, back to the show. Okay, so I got a question on YouTube from @PrayingFarms who asked, quote, "Why did you decide to drop selling at the market?" End quote. I think I've at least touched on the reasons a little bit, but I don't think I've really detailed it. However, since I mentioned we were dropping the market in the first segment about dropping our organic certification, I figured now is as good a time as any to kind of dive into it. So 2 years ago, we were having arguably the best market season we'd ever had. We had a line out the booth every morning. We were selling loads of food. It was a good day almost every day, but a few things were happening all at once. For one, our kids were in school, and so for whole chunks of the season, I was spending my weekends at markets when they were home, missing a lot of time with them. Then during the summer, they would want to go out on a Friday or Saturday night to a soccer game in Louisville or Cincinnati, but I couldn't do most of them because of the market in the morning. It was just way too brutal to stay up late and then have to work really early in the morning. Also, doing the market meant it was really hard to coach them in soccer, which, as you know, I love coaching them, and it's something I like doing for our community because not only did I have market on Saturday mornings, which most of the games are on Saturday mornings, but even for the Sunday afternoon games, we did a Sunday market in the morning, so I was completely whooped. To be good at market, you have to be fresh and ready. To be good at coaching, you have to be fresh and ready, especially when you're dealing with other people's kids. It's a big responsibility, and if you're tired and say something stupid or hurt somebody's feelings, it could ruin their image of the game or damage their self-confidence. I take that stuff very seriously. Then the final element of this decision fell into place in February of 2024 when our longtime beloved employee, Greg, who video watchers will recognize, let us know he was leaving for another career. So we had to make a decision. Pivot to something less profitable but less intensive like retail or wholesale, or just do the market and continue on what felt like a path to burnout. I was beginning to resent the business for the time it was taking away from my kids anyway. Markets are a lot of work, and I wasn't super interested or didn't really have the capacity to stop and train somebody else to do Greg's job. So basically, we reasoned that our revenue from the market was the salary of one full-time employee and market expenses, gas, vehicle upkeep, market fee, etc., plus 10 or 15 extra $1,000. So if we could find that 10 or 15 extra $1,000 somewhere, we wouldn't need the market. That's kind of what we came up with. Now, could we have just hired someone to solely do the market? Sure, maybe. But the challenge with hiring someone to just do your market is that there are a few like kind of important factors. Like there's no room for error, for being late. Like we can't have a no call, no show with the most important thing we do every single week, which is sell the food we grow. I mean, it's easy to think of farming as what we do in the fields, and certainly that's mostly what I talk about here, but selling food is actually what you do as a farmer, as a small-scale farmer, market grower, whatever. So I could rely on someone to come get the van and drive that thing to market at some absurd hour in the morning, and then set up, bring the money and the van back to the farm safely, which, to be clear, I'm more concerned with having someone carrying around that much cash than any sort of shrinkage. But if any of those went wrong, then I would have to bail on the kids or on soccer because I had to go do the market. And for me, for my personality, if I'm going to be carrying around that stress, I just feel like I would rather just go do market myself. Also, food doesn't sell itself, not really. In a crowded market, you sell the food. Your personality, the relationships you forge, your enthusiasm. Sure, people will buy a carrot bunch because it looks awesome and it's organic or whatever, but lots more people will just walk by unless you call them in. You can certainly create protocols to mitigate all of that risk of having somebody who's maybe not great at selling, of keeping them safe, of making sure that they get to market on time or whatever, or like have backup plans in case they can't do it and so you don't have to do it. But we felt like the best option for us was to drop the market and try some other stuff. Some stuff that fit more into our lives. Now, that does not mean we won't ever return. My oldest is a bit of a capitalist, or at least he has learned that work equals Legos. And I will imagine that he will one day be interested in joining me at the farmer's market table and be capable of staying there for longer than he is now because he's still pretty young. And our philosophy with the kids, with the reason that we don't just force them to come to market with us, is that we want them to find their own path to caring about the land and about ecology and about farming and about food so that it's genuine. So it's something they did. We don't force this business on them because we don't want them to resent it. The farm is our thing. We want them to find their own thing. It'd be awesome if it was farming. I'm not putting any pressure on that. Moreover, market days are long, 10-hour days, often hot or windy or rainy. And although we tried for a while to have the kids help us, and then one of us would take them home early, it became a lot to juggle and basically just consumed our whole day. Of course, as they get older, that will change, and perhaps so too will our approach to how and where we sell our food. All that to say, similar to how I didn't want the first segment to come off as some grand proclamation about certification, I'm not trying to make some grand stand against markets either. I don't have any real issues with selling at farmers markets necessarily. It can be a lot of labor, but if you do it well, it can be great profit also. Though I do think it's easy to only look at the gross revenue of markets sometimes and forget to factor in the overhead of time spent washing, packing, driving, setting up, shutting down, money spent on coffee and bagels, and then coffee, and then coffee, and then coffee, plus the other things that you give up when you give up your weekends. I enjoy doing farmers markets personally. Like, I enjoy talking to the customers, and I think I'm somewhat well fit for that personality-wise. I'm probably better at selling food in person than I am at growing it, but priorities change. For me, try as I may, I am just constitutionally incapable of being motivated by money any more than I have to be. It's somewhat of a curse, to be honest. This show and my business would probably be a lot better if it were like a bigger thing in my brain. But family is my most motivating form of capital, and that's not changing anytime soon. So yeah, maybe we will return to market in coming years, but also maybe not. We'll just see what everyone in the family wants to do and go from there. I look forward to hearing what you all have to say about markets and how you feel about them, or how maybe your market has changed or not changed in your eyes. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, friends. I will end it there. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and the team at No-Till Growers. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or the Seed Farmer at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone at patreon.com/no-till-growers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of January, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Andrea, the band teacher. That's the only one. I mean, this feels like a story that sort of writes itself. There's a marching band competition down in Stillwater, Florida, obviously, and Andrea has her team with her, her band, and they go down there, and the theme of this particular show is Christmas music. So they get down there, they're very excited, and they practiced a lot, and then they find out that they have to compete against a group of elves from the North Pole, which feels unfair, but Andrea, the band teacher, is up for the challenge. Not only does this particular movie have great music all throughout, but you also get to learn a little bit about elf culture, and I think that's really important, that we kind of don't take them for granted, because they work really hard. So it's emotional, it's empathetic, and it's groovy. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching and/or listening. We will see you tomorrow.